Welcome to WO50, Women Over 50 Embody Wisdom and Wellness.
Hello, my name is Corrine, and I'm here with my BFF, Eddi. And today we're doing a follow-up conversation from our last episode, our conversation with Alaya. So we're titling this A Deeper Discussion about Alaya and our conversation with her. And it was,
Yes.
I always love talking about all things Alaya.
And we had a lot of fun. And as I'm trying to, be really articulate with Alaya's words, Corinne actually had to straighten me out on a few things. And that's when I realized, there is no separate self. You are myself.
She's didn't take it personally when I said, no, that's not what Alaya said. You guys will hear it.
You'll hear it. And it's just how we are. And
if you would have said, I experienced Alaya saying this, I would have let it pass, but you actually said, Alaya said this, so I had to. Anyways, we hope you enjoy it. And then we have our follow-up conversation with Alaya afterwards. So you get all kinds of treats this week.
Hi. I was getting a radio voice and then you clicked it on and I'm just like, okay, we're rolling.
We're rolling. And today we're continuing on our conversation about Alaya. I just posted the Alaya conversation, our conversation with the wonderful Alaya last Friday. So we will post this conversation this coming Friday so people can get some continuance and vibe. And then I'll also, at the end of this conversation, I will edit it right into the end of because we continued to talk after I ended the last one. We continued to talk for another 20-25 minutes. So if you loved the conversation with Alaya and you love her vibe as much as we do, then continue to listen after and this episode, and we'll talk about Alaya, then Alaya will come back to you. Yeah.
For sure. Well, lots to share.
Yeah. She's so special. I feel so grateful, like, for this time in my life, for her to have come. I've been on this spiritual journey a very long time, since my 20s. And when I met her 3.5 years ago, I met her in an interview that I did with my old podcast with Sean called Turning Points. And people also, I'll link that below. People can find that only on YouTube. It's no longer available on podcast platforms, but you find it with, Turning Points with Sean and Corrine. You can find it because there's a lot of turning points. Anyway, so I met her, and it's so funny. In the interview with her, my first experience with her, you can tell I'm just in awe of her. Like, I could feel her because I've done so much work like this. I could feel and get exactly where she was coming from. Yeah. And in the interview, you hear Sean really didn't realize where he was coming from. And there was at one point when Alaya said, well, check that out, which is her code word for just pause for a moment and feel into that. And he just went right on because he didn't understand. So we already had done an interview with her back, 4 years ago, asking her about her life journey, not at all like what we did with her last week. And then she did an interview on Buddha at the Gas Pump, which is a very famous podcast that have tons of spiritual conversations that Eddi and I've listened to over the years. She did that very similar conversation. Did you ever listen to that?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes. So it's very similar conversation to what we had with her. It was about her journey, her awakening after college and stuff. So then what we thought we wanted to talk to her about was, her experience before awakening and then after. And I mean, as usual, she surprised the heck out of us, and in a beautiful, deep way.
Because she's got the beautiful language around everything. I think even with you and I, just the interview just went the way, just organically, right? It just,
that's the only way Alaya knows how to do things.
Yeah.
If you try to talk to her and ask her to talk about something, even if you try to ask her about non-dualism, which is what we're doing, she won't talk about it. She'll invite you to have your own experience. Because, and I took this quote off of our conversation with her. She says her big thing is for you to have your own experience. She says, if I'm speaking, you're looking at me. Somehow it makes me separate than you. Somehow I could be there and you down there, or I have something you don't. So I don't do a good job of playing well into that, she says. She says she really likes to hand it back to you and check in for yourself.
Yes. And the other thing I took away from that when she said that was, and she said this a few times, the mind wants to know. I remember I asked her a question, and it was mostly for the variety of listeners we have about awakening and how that question would be addressed.
Yeah, what does it feel like to be awakened, you asked?
Yes, and that's right. And she doesn't call it that. And of course she didn't. And I kind of felt in that moment when I was saying the question to her that okay, she's going to strip that down too, like that. And then it got me thinking, and that's what she does. Like she turns it around where then I start thinking, I'm like, I don't even call it that anymore. Because after every experience with Alaya, it's like cleaning out the closet of knowledge, books and dusting the dust off some of them and rereading some old literature where I'm like, now I get it. Now I get it. And I love when she said also it's the unmet or the what
It's
was it you worded?
what's unmet, untouched, unloved
Yeah.
is what she invites you to sit with.
Yes.
So
The
it's like,
mystery. And that's
yeah,
the other thing she said is like when people want to know, like that's the mystery, right? The mind wants to know. Well, we just stay curious.
yeah, like people will sit down. Like I've sat with her many times. You've been on retreat with her, and then I've been on lots of retreats with her, and now I've been so blessed to be doing retreats with her now. And
Mm-hmm.
she she really, if somebody sits down and they'll start with their story, she won't usually let them go on for too long because she wants to find the aliveness. She's
Yeah.
really interested in what's alive, and she tells you to be tender and
Mm-hmm.
just soften. And when you soften with what you're feeling, and you Eddie talk about that all the time. You always talk about the feeling. It's like, even like I remember my sister knows so much about memory stuff because she's a speech that path, and my mom's memory isn't so good now. And I said something about how do we know if my mom's boyfriend is treating her nicely or whatever because she doesn't remember some things. And my sister said no, but she'll remember the feeling,
Yeah.
right? And we
Mm-hmm.
remember, so if we can get back to the feeling of it and out of the story of it, then we can figure out what's alive and true. And that's what she calls an unguarded heart. And when we're
Yeah.
in our unguarded heart, we can meet with what's unmet, untouched, unloved. And she's really ruthless, really, with that. Like
Yeah.
she will not talk about what is non-dualism, even though she knows she's a non-dual teacher. She
Mm-hmm.
very rarely uses that language
Yeah.
because it gets you caught in a lane of thinking this is what it is, and then it can
Yeah.
become another belief system.
Well, and it becomes people might take that opportunity to judge. So she leaves it very vague where, well, her language is there is no judgment. Even that's fallen away because that's getting in the middle of an experience, right? And you're instead of being open and having the ease around it, she's like, we we ruin it for ourselves to judge something, but she doesn't say it that way. We all
No.
have our language. Like she just says, why not just be tender and move through it with, what was it? She said, tenderizing. She was
Yeah.
like, you know, we tenderize ourselves after we get a certain age, but openness and ease and gentleness and with your true nature. And because really, in the middle of things, in the middle of the muck, um, it's the mind bringing up that experience. You're still always there. Your true nature is there. It's like it's mind, the thought that brings you back to the experience. Like it's like even the words now, I'm like even
Yeah, we don't want to talk and get into the muck of it because it does get very
no,
mucky when you try to
yes,
talk about it.
yeah,
And
because
yeah,
you
because
can't talk like
I've been
yeah,
sitting in non-dual circles for a very long time, longer than I care to talk about, like over 20
yes,
years. And And it just, people talk about the same thing in these satsang circles over and over. And Alaya was different. And so she's been able to, with her, there's been some layers that have fallen away of the ego, of the knowingness, like there was a few years before I met her, the ego was starting to, during COVID, I was like, what is this teacher that needs, like, there is no, who cares? Nobody needs me. Nobody needs me. I don't need to teach, and that was falling away. And so when I show up with her, there's some remnants, and she doesn't try to find it. She's not it. She just is who she is, unconditional love. Like, even I'll sit with her on retreat and I'll feel like I've gone through experiences when I just feel, like the energy is draining out of me, where the ego is like draining down, like into a swirl, into a bowl, a drainage bowl. And she's just lovingly looking at, there's no judgment whatsoever. She's just pure love. And anytime I've been upset with her, because there's been times when my mind will say, and I'm like, but that's ridiculous. Like, there's literally nobody to be upset about, because there is nobody in there. Like, she literally feels as connected to everything. Like she said, there's no difference from a beautiful flower at its full bloom than when it's dead and crumbling in your hand. And she even said that with her father. There was no difference to her. Now, it's hard for people to wrap their head around.
Yeah.
But then when her father was alive, then when his body was lifeless, like, she was just curious with it. And I actually
it's interesting you just said that, because after listening to the recording today, right, I listened back, because sometimes I don't listen back till later.
Yeah, takes you
I'm
a
like,
few
oh
weeks.
God, what did I say? Why did I ask it that way? The dialogue. And then I loved it when she said, you are my very self. You are my very self. And when she talked about her dad, and I'm listening back to it, and now you just said it again. I remember being with my dad when he was passing, and I was with him right when he, transitioned, left his body, whatever it is happens. And she said about her dad, there was this, just so many thoughts were going through her head. And the same with me, you're thinking, oh gosh, I got to protect the family. I got to and I'm
she
letting
didn't
all
say
of it.
that, Eddi.
No. She said, no, she said when there was a lot of thoughts going through her head, but when she looked at him, I know I'm wording mine and hers now.
I did not hear her say that, but I'll have to go. Yeah.
When she looked at him, she saw peace. His skin was softer.
She didn't say that either.
No,
she didn't say any of that. She said, his
way
skin.
did she word it?
What she said was, when she looked at her dad when he was dying, lifeless and white skin, it was beautiful to her. That's all she said.
Yes.
You're putting all kinds of story around it, which is what we do. No, it's good to notice that.
But this is where I took it. It was white and beautiful and peaceful. Like there's where we again extrapolate, right? We stretch it to, because I'm hearing her and I'm thinking, wow, I remember, my dad, because his eyes were blue, his skin was peaceful, like he was peaceful, right? And that, as I'm listening to her, that's what I was feeling. What she was kind of saying is that we're thinking, or the thoughts are coming in, but she wasn't grabbing one thought in particular.
Yeah, she does. She wouldn't even say that. She wouldn't even say that. But
I know,
that's
but
what you would
I can't
say.
word exactly like Alaya.
I know, and I spent more time with her. That's why I know. She is ruthless. She is ruthless with truth and present moment, and not going into story. And you spent enough time with her to get that myself too. And I'm trying to do it with myself better. And I can see it when I listen back as well. I could see.
Well, I'll listen back again, and then I'll go, oh yeah, she didn't say that, but that's what I got out of it.
Yes, that's what you get out of it, which is so beautiful. That's what we do in life.
Yes.
And we have to realize we're constantly like co-creating and adding our pieces. We're not listening. Yes. We never, like, it's like watching a movie. We never watch the movie the same way. We never are listening. True. No matter how much we want to tune in and listen and soak into what everything Alaya says, our mind is still trying to make sense of it, which she does none of. She literally, and same with Adyashanti, her teacher, and Neelam, her teacher, and Ramana Maharishi, there's this like lineage of non-dualism that they literally, there's no extras there anymore. Their ego has dissolved.
Yeah.
And the ego is simply the ideas and thoughts that we have. It's our idea, and it's a construct of a separate self, and we can understand intellectually that we're not a separate self, but until you actually feel one with everything, literally, I feel an interconnectedness with everything. I can say that. And it's so awesome how the journey has been, these layers falling away. And I know it's been the same for you too.
Oh yeah, it has. It has. And when you do sit in moments like even on the retreat with Alaya, or if I do a retreat with you, or we do one together, and the experience that happens in the setting, it begins and it just travels through the whole group. Like there is it I when I sit in those experiences, I love that. Like because there is no me, there is no the next person and the next person. And again, we don't word it that way, non-dual or interconnectedness. Like we just kind of let it be and let each person have their experience. And that's what starts to happen with our conditioning and our belief system is that we have in place is they start falling away. It's like when we were talking about growing up certain religions, right? When Alaya was talking, they start to fall away.
Yeah. So with her, she has what's called an awakening, like she went directly there. And then there was a couple years, if you listen to her interview, of it's continuing to fall away, but it's not like slow like you and I have. I feel like my journey's been like really slow over 35 years of focusing on this, but I feel it has sped up a lot, especially since meeting her. Like I feel like I've hit in plateaus at different times. And there's definitely less of a sense of me inside myself than there ever has been. It's like it shows up in teaching. Like I've been taught retreats for years. That's what I do. That's what I've done for 30 years. And the way I used to teach retreat was showing up as the retreat leader, having this label and not being ego about it. But I guess that it was like I'm wanting you to have a good experience. And there was just a lot of like control and and after doing some retreats with her and then doing a few retreats, like there was one retreat in specifically where Eddi was on both, where we were both with Alaya, then there was a little break, and then Eddi was there on my retreat and ended up assisting me on my retreat. And I would that was like I felt like the best retreat I'd ever led in my life. And because I felt like I was just allowing it all to unfold. I felt less in control of what everybody was feeling and just let, the natural way. And it was so beautiful how at the end, this final circle, how everybody had been opening and awakening.
Yes, I know. And well, I feel it. I don't know it, but remember back years ago when we would host something and teach things we learned, we wanted the person that attended the retreat or the event to have a great experience. But, we're at a point in our lives, whether it's getting it or moving through it or wisdom with the aging process or getting older, but everything is kind of, it's all in there, but it's a layered effect. And then we're left with like, there's nothing, there's nothingness, right? And everything all at the same time. And we don't put pressure on if we do something, your experience is your experience. I have nothing to do with it. I'm just showing up, sharing some stuff and, you know, and I've gotten better and better and better with that feeling because I've been that type of person wanting, make sure everybody gets their money's worth and no one's upset and yeah.
Well, how's it showed up in your office? Because that's where you've spent most of your time is one-on-one
Oh,
with people.
deep listening, big time, deep listening and just every experience and every person that comes into my office I just see myself in every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really do. There's male, female, children. There's something that's always connecting with them.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that is, and then I just go with that feeling of what's needed. Because sometimes they can come in for, nutritional advice. And before I know it, I'm talking about the earth and the planet, and make sure you eat your vegetables because that you're it's important. We go back into the earth healthy.
Oh, that's funny. That's hilarious. That must get a laugh.
Yeah.
That's
Sometimes
hilarious.
eyes open really big
Yeah.
because
You're
everybody's
seeing if
in a
they're paying
different.
attention.
Yeah. But I'm shifting all the time. I shifted again, like just the conversation with Alaya.
Oh,
I
yeah.
shifted again when you just pointed out to me that Alaya didn't say it that way, which is why when we share something, it changes,
Yeah.
right? Like even how you would share
Yeah.
what you know with Alaya, because you've spent more time with her. You're getting
Yeah.
ready to do, another retreat together. And I just love having conversations with her because it stretches me and I
Yeah.
get gentler with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just reflects and radiates presence and just unconditional love, which is what she said her teacher did for her. Neelam was her first teacher. She talks about that in the interview that Sean and I did and the Buddha at the Gas Pump Tour. And then Eddi and I recently went back and listened to the Buddha at the Gas Pump interviews that are 12 years old now with Alaya's teacher, Neelam. So if you
Yes.
loved Alaya, I
Yeah.
encourage you to listen to Neelam. I can't link YouTube links for some reason.
Yeah.
But you can look up Neelam, Neelam, on Buddha at the Gas Pump, and the shortened version is on BATGAP, BATGAP. It's a very famous podcast and on YouTube. And it's
Mm.
no longer, because it's 12 years old, available on podcast, but it is available on YouTube. And I've sent the Neelam interview to so many people because you could kind of see where Alaya, like, because they both talk about tenderness. And that's the thing with these female teachers is they really are into an embodied experience,
Mm-hmm.
the nervous system and an embody. And that's why Alaya and I have started to work together, because she experienced the yoga that I offer, which is very unique style that is a very embodying, softening of the nervous system, even tenderizing of the nervous system. And
Mm.
so Neelam talks about that a lot, the importance of that. So,
Yes.
yeah,
And also Gangaji. Gangaji. I think
yes,
Neelam really like Gangaji. And then a lot of them come from Ramana. And you spent a lot of time in Tiruvannamalai, and you took me and some other people there to
yeah,
enjoy the experience of that special place. And we went to the
Sacred Mountain,
temple and the
Arunachala.
sacred mountain, and
Yeah.
and again, ego just gets deposited. It falls away when you're in these sacred, beautiful places. And I think what's important when we speak with Alaya and listen in to whether it's this podcast or Neelam's or Gangaji or whomever, is that you really find that sacredness within yourself. That you know
That's
even
what they're
walking.
pointing to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's happening. And that it's so easy to do that if you're in India circling a temple 9 times, it becomes meditative and it falls away. Or you're sitting in the presence of Alaya and she falls away. And I had many things happen during that retreat.
You
So,
did.
but we have to uh, bring a lot of this beautiful um, essence with us in day to day living. We don't get to stay at a retreat center in the mountains. No Wi-Fi, no social media. So we have to come back, but we don't have to grab the story and jump right into that struggle experience, right? Because it's thought. We can actually. Why don't we go to that thought of peace within ourselves that we got to know?
And Alea would say that's even extra. So it's
Yes,
like,
because the mind wants to know.
right. And so just feeling into, when you have a, I think you're starting to do this with your people now, and I certainly am with mine. It's like, when people have an issue and we ask them to soften and just be tender with it instead of going on and on and on about the issue, just come back to the feeling, how you're feeling now, and be tender, because that's Alea's invitation constantly, is to just come back to the present moment.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do every moment of every day, and not perfect at it, but it's getting better, you know.
Same, same. Every day, present moment, we get to take another another approach with tenderness and
Yeah.
peacefulness and ease. And I'm looking forward to hearing the next the tail end segment of the conversation, because it's really good, and I hope we get her back to some more, to have, because I think we're going to do some other conversations about some really tender issues in this world.
Yep. She's agreed to come back again. And
Hmm.
she and I have a retreat coming up in October, a 4-day silent retreat, what the retreat center that Eddi and I have both been to, Wellbeing Retreat. And I'll put a link to that below. And in this next part that I'm going to put in, that you can continue listening now, is the tail end, the last 20 minutes of the conversation with Alaya, where Eddi asks about us working together in the retreat. And she shares her experience of why she felt into the presence yoga. She calls it what I call awareness yoga. She now calls it presence yoga, which I'm totally fine with. I don't care what she
Yes.
calls it.
Yes. And what I am left with after Alaya said, "You are my very self," has never felt so true. As we have known, we're soul sisters. So it's like, you are my very self. I bow to you.
Oh, Eddi, I bow
Yeah.
to you. But what Alaya says,
Thank you,
I bow
Alaya.
to you. Yes, your awakening is what my awakening. Your suffering
Yeah.
is my suffering. And I love you. And
Love
Eddi and
you.
I love you.
Thank you for listening.
Yes.
I bow to you.
I bow to you. We're the same, right? We're all like, it is just the same. Nobody is actually, that's kind of hard for the ego to hear, but we are all going through the same, like, fresh aliveness coming in, and the accruing, and then of the conditioning of the human experience, and it all has its uniqueness, of course, but it's the same burdening, the same kind of, and then the slowing down, and then recovery back, that we have potential, and that kind of cycle of life, that circle, and it's not just the human life. It's like we can look at almost every other way that we can kind of experience that in our consciousness, and it all almost, I mean, all other ways are going to be natural.
Absolutely.
To be like, and we're, yeah, and it's pretty fascinating. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I don't know if you had thought of it before, or it just came to you when we started this full circle thing, but wow, because I feel like, all these words, that the non-dualism and awakening, and it's like, how do we explain it? And they are a little bit, almost like the word yoga can be a little bit turn offish for people, and they put it in a box and a category. And I feel like this conversation has helped us to open up what it is that we are sharing and what we're interested in. And
it is the connectedness. It is the connectedness. It is getting back to our true nature, who we, before the labels and the judgment that we thought was so important. It starts to, I think, even after 50, because that's, the lane our wheelhouse right now. And you're not after 60 yet, like us, but I think as we, like Corinne just said, when yoga was a word that I remember when I was working in Nashville, a couple of times I recommended, this is like, I don't know, 35 years ago. And I recommended to a patient to do some yoga, because we're always learning and taking on information. And I've always wanted to share everything I learn. I'm like, it's not mine. I don't even, now I'm at an age, I don't even know where I learned half this stuff. Like, I'm quoting Corinne, I'm quoting Alaya, Adyashanti, Deepak, and I don't know who's the words anymore. And
it's all the beloved. And the
It's
many
all the
forms
interconnection.
exist,
Yeah.
right? It's all just, it's,
It
yeah, we can't even
is.
say connection, but it's even simpler than that. There's only one, and even that's too much. So we're just sort of like, we're just bowing at each other, right? And maybe we're having this experience of this, the other. And, but in like, if we slow down, that it's really like same, like all the life force that comes from, like, arises mysteriously here in this moment, right? Like, and start getting that false sense that there is no differentiation with anything. And then there is such joy, right? In the differentiation, right? And there's not the confusion that we're separate. And that's really our deepest yearning, is to come home to that, right? And that it's so already all done. It's a done deal. Like, nobody can do anything about it. We're this living wisdom is just, it's that's all there is, right?
Yeah. Because the ego doesn't like to hear any of that, really.
Yeah. Where people like to turn me off, or they like turn, but it is like, slow down and just like let it just feeling our deepest prayer, our deepest yearning. And we can argue with, like, I don't want to give that up, right? But I'll say a cookie and a crumb. You keep a crumb and you'll feel it. You'll feel the narrowing down from the love that's here, and the it's basically, it's something that arises saying, I don't trust this. I don't trust this that's here, right? And so when we're not trusting what's here, and you can use whatever word you want to use here, but it is not, it's mysterious, alive. This is mysterious, alive, and free. It cannot be bottled up. Cannot be. We certainly try, right? We certainly try to, like, have it out there so we can know it, but everything, all scientists, every map the brain, it's like, you go in there and we're all left into the mystery. We can say things about it, but we can't say why, how this is here, right? And so when we really slow down, and just feel, then that's, this is kind of a big feeling energy right now, but if we can really feel it, that it really brings us very present and grounded. So then that common sense becomes in our brain, like, we'll know what to do, like, we'll know what to say, we'll know what direction to go. Like, we run to, pick our child up, throw them around and play, because it's just happening, it's alive. There's no, like, I think I should be going to do this. It's just, right? Like, we're just spontaneous beings that can curiously, like, be in the most, I'm finding in life, and this is maybe something that reflects too, is this, like, getting older, and it feels very exciting. It's like, what's next? Like, being here, and then, like, what is life like today? What new thing that comes in, new person, situation, or a shift of energy to do something different. It brings me back to my child like wonder. And so I don't know, like, words get trouble.
It's present moment. Words get we'll have the next podcast, the three of us will just stare at each other. No language. We'll just
I'm good with that.
I know.
You are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please.
Yeah, so much gratitude, Alaya. We will have you back. You already agreed before we even started, so hope you still feel that way.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe at the end here is sort of what I'm feeling. It's like kind of talking about how presence moves into, like, I could say in parenting, right? And how that changes karmically, like what I received from my parents or my church, and like the potential of like how this sort of not only serves the idea of me suffering, but how we become, at service to the beloved and all of life. Like it means that what I received, I'm being tender with. And so I react differently, like in these relationships, or like how I'm with my parents than how my parents were with me. And I mean, that's really how I see like the greatest, like how to be in service in the world. It's
Yeah.
tenderness, gentle.
Yes.
And then it's somehow everything is reorienting, and we're knowing what to say and do, and we're out of the realm of trying to figure out everything else. It's just, it all becomes very much felt sense that there's a deep service happening in a way that we can't track, and that's okay.
Yeah. We can't track, and that's okay.
We can't.
And felt sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And that word got turned on to me by
Sean. I
Sean.
think, yeah.
He said it when we were talking one time, and I just, because that makes sense. I would say that makes sense. And I was like, you have awakened me.
That beautiful soul of a man.
Right? Like that's how it goes, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm at y'all's feet. Like everything that you're sharing is like, I can't have every experience in the world, but as you share the trash can, I mean, it's like this whole new like energy. It's a flavor that is just so delicious, right? Like sharing, everybody, each of you sharing your stuff. It's like it's opening here. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly has been that for me with you. I had so many ahas with you, Alaya. And when I've talked about you before, it's like, and I like you, I feel so present when I'm with you. It's like you're ruthless with presence. And it just like, and I could see Eddi too being here, and we're just like there with you. And
even scrabbling I felt like I was playing Scrabble for a minute, trying to grab the right word when I would say, if you were in the audience, there was an audience in front of you here, and the questions that would be asked, because the language keeps changing. And even while I was asking you that question, it was changing yet again in my brain.
Amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. That's, I love that I mean, man, that I'm at your feet. That's delicious.
Yeah.
Wow, you're just it's present moment. That's what we, it's all we have.
Yeah, and that changes, and that we're not like grasping, and we have fluidity that makes the most sense just to be the change. We are the change. Not we're not like grasping to hold it. Do you know what I mean? That it's making sense, because our brain is really just kind of the last thing that's translating this energy, right? It's sort of like, and it makes sense if energy is changing and flowing or slowing down or starting, we have to be very sweet to our mind, sometimes. And that real sweetness of like how we're so speedy with speaking about stuff, our knowledge, that's sort of the dead part, that's not the living energy, and how mind becomes in service to grace, right? And so that switching where, like, even right now, you can hear my words. I'm like feeling the energy, and finding the words to speak it.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not from the mind. I'm like, it's really amazing how quick the mind is able to kind of feel the energy and find the words and speak.
Mm-hmm. Or hijack. The ego can hijack it too. Like that's what I was saying. It's like when you show up with this, like this feeling, and you're speaking from the feeling, the presence, and like it's very magnetic. And so when I'm in your presence or talking to you, it's like my being is joyful and loving, but it's also new. So it's like there've been times on retreat with you where I could see fully clearly when my ego was hijacking my words that were coming out, and the difference between feeling and speaking from that.
Yeah. And I mean, and as we kind of talk a little more, so like we may be making less sense to the mind, but we're having a felt sense.
Yeah.
About,
Yes.
You can feel it's totally like, and maybe we're more like a song or more like a poem or more like music, like the way we're speaking, because it's more, we're feeling it, and the mind is like being able to open and kind of stay, be open and follow along and feel it while it's hearing it. And when we're really close, we're just like trying to get it, just understand it just through our mind, right? And so just sort of that discernment, or that kind of the way, right? It's just so fun. It's just so fun, because
it really is.
Yeah, because it means
I remember when
there's aliveness and openness and nature. Gosh.
Well, I remember when I went to the retreat out in Tazewell. And I had so many questions, right? So many questions for you, and I'm just, everything's whirling. And then when I sat in the presence of the group and Corrine being there as well, I had no words. I didn't even speak. I don't think I spoke for 3 days, which is, I mean, when I like to get information, but I could feel it. I felt it. I felt every moment. I felt, even if someone said, describe your day, there was no words to describe it, And it's beautiful that you and Corrine get to do this again.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And it's all, everything here in this form is just bowing to this moment. Right. So, it can be the one, or it can be many, and we can be at service. And so many ways when we're just bowing to this moment. And I describe yoga, with her. I'm using this with folks. I'm calling it sacred melting into the earth body work. And then for me, teaching for so long now, it's it's everything is really pointing into this felt sense, right? And then this tenderizing into the heart. And there's so much, like what we're talking about, is like the buzzing in the mind and the untying and kind of feeling into this, right? But the movement of the body kind of opens at a different tempo than the movement of the mind. And I've really been yearning to, like, bring in some of this type of, like, offering alongside with satsang, because it just feels like just such a sacred hug. That's what I like. Yeah. And it just such a lovely, just why not be at service in a way that, like, once the body starts settling in, that there can be this way where you're not really addressing the mind so much. From satsang, like this kind of conversation is like activating, right? And you could be feeling afraid by what I'm saying, or you could be having memories like what I had with my father, or like whatever that's you're taking care of with what's coming up, like when we're together. And then this offering is really inside your own heart. And so there's just sort of this movement back and forth between satsang and settling into the body, presence yoga that we're doing together, which feels like a really like loving support. Like it, I'm it's like, yes, give me that here, because my body is, I've had all kinds of body stuff, sometimes very fast and intense, like I had friends tell me when I was in Sedona, it was the year I didn't blink. I probably could have really used some body work to like help that, right? Like, and it was a year. That's sort of how I'm also really attuned to like how fast and slow the body sort of like also unfurls this energy of what we've been, kind of maintaining inside of ourselves. And so just being very just the very sacred untying. And there is just, I have in this form just a deep desire to be at service to how this, throwing myself off the cliff, throwing myself in the fire, but also like that sacred hug, that like rolling out the red carpet. Why not? Like we can, why not? It's possible. And so meeting Corrine, coming to do retreats with me, her stuff was changing in a way that it just was sort of becoming very just natural for us to come together. And so it makes me really excited because it just feels so loving and nurturing and supportive and deepening and like kind of and it's easier for me too. It's helpful for me, right? Because it's a lot, it's just yumminess everywhere.
Like I love the yoga so much, and I have been sharing it for a long time, and I feel like it's been at service to me and to who I've been able to share it with. But there's just been this feeling of something else, and then when it came along to blend the two of us, it does seem very natural. And now there's a whole nother life in it now. Because I feel like in the yoga, there's like such a deep and open, because I feel like I missed, like in the way you said you could have used the yoga back when the year you didn't blink. I feel like I could have used a lot of Alaya in when the garbage was falling down the stairway. And I didn't really know what was happening to me. Like I didn't know. All I knew that there wasn't a big sense of me in my being anymore, but I didn't know how to describe it or have anybody to talk about it or anything. So I feel like it is a natural blending, and so grateful.
Yeah. And I had the same experience, right? Like, so my stories, and everybody's going to kind of have those, like the trash can story, and then like looking around and they're, what is this, and that's happening, that's here. And, having, a big thing of like saying yes to this is, as that was occurring, meeting my teacher Neelam, right? So it's the same conversations, like in a different flavor, a different personality, different way, different kind of snowflake. And Adia also, like, is like kind of deepening. And so with that, it's like to just be able to, I feel so blessed to be able to have relationships and speak and have conversations and questions, and how helpful that, right? Like sort of like what you're describing. And so, and then it's just, then it's like, I'm at your feet.
Eddi, thanks for letting us share about our retreats together. Thanks for spurring on that.
Yeah,
of course.
That's sweet. We haven't really, we've talked about it together, but we haven't really, like, as we're kind of getting into it a little bit more, we're able to have a language, I think, and an ability to describe it in a way that's so yummy, delicious.
Yeah, it is. I can vouch for that. It's
And Eddie, I'm giving you a big hug. I love you so
same.
much.
Mm.
So
Love you.
I saw Corrine just last week, but I'm hugging you.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Mm.
Love you.
Ladies, we'll do it again soon.
Oh, yeah.
We will.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
So bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for
you.
listening.